make it. And we're off.
Off like a prom dress.
Oh.
That's what they used to say in the valley, at least. And we're off.
I know a few of the sayings, so I'm not going to say them on air.
Maybe I shouldn't have even said that one, but, you know, it just is kind of, they go hand in hand when you've heard them so many times.
That's the way our brains work.
Yeah, association. I'm sure there's something in there like that.
Yeah, well, what we hear reminds us of something else that we've heard in the past, and or what you see, what you smell. It's all about memories. They're coming back.
That's true. What's new with you?
Just went out for a 8-kilometer walk in -16. It's beautiful.
I didn't go that far today.
Yeah.
But I didn't mind the cold. If you're layered up, it's okay. I wore my balaclava.
Yeah. It's not that cold. Like, it's if you were naked, I guess it would be cold. But if you have a winter jacket,
we'll try that after.
Yeah. If you have a winter jacket and the proper attire, it's okay.
I'm kind of bummed too. I painted my toenails this morning for the first time since summer, and I'm always so cautious.
Lift it up to the camera.
Let me see. I can't really like twist my foot. They're pink, so they look great, and I'm the person that pretty well every time bumps them and smudges them, and I've been so cautious. And then I came in here and I'm like, I can't wear socks, and I'm just gonna sit outstretched so as not to bump them, and notice that my big toe is like completely ruined already. So it's gonna be a redo. I don't know what the secret is.
Life is tough,
Any estheticians out there? I think there's a top coat you can probably get that
I can't help you
expedites the drying process, but it's pretty well a 10 out of 10 for me that I ruin them. So I typically don't bother. But
I was one point, I think it was on here, I was complaining or just talking about, I don't really complain too much, but I was talking about how my feet were sore, and our friend Christina Martin, who's very kind, very generous person, she purchased me a foot thing. What do you call it?
A pedicure.
Pedicure,
yes.
Yeah. I went to the spa, and I assume you'd be like hidden in a room, like so no one could see what's going on. But you're right out in the wide open.
Way. Heaven forbid a man get a pedicure.
I was terrified, like an old hockey coach was going to walk in or something. But
then you guys would have something in common. You could have an SBS, they're called, a side-by-side pedicure. Yeah.
I found out in the last couple of years, and I'm not one to brag about many things, but getting that done, working with a reflexologist, and then we had another pedicure on New Year's. Remember, Rodney and Celeste got us that, and all three of them were like, "You have the most beautiful feet," and like, you must like never be on your feet. I'm like, I walk like 100 kilometers a week. I'm never off my feet, to be honest. And they're like, they're just so smooth. There's no calluses. They're like perfectly put together. Like, that is hilarious.
I guess maybe that's your secret is all the walking you do,
maybe.
Like good blood flow or something.
But
you do have nice feet, though. I think they're proportionally shaped. Like my toes, I'm not doing a close-up of this, but they're very weirdly, like kind of like this all over the place. And yours have this nice flow to them.
It's my best feature. It's my feet.
Maybe you should start a foot fan page.
If I can make money off it, for
little side
sure.
hustle over here.
I don't know if women buy men's feet pictures.
Sure, why not?
Foot pictures.
Maybe men will buy your feet
Yeah,
pictures.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I think maybe the rest of me has to be different for them to be interested in that. I don't know.
It's just your feet, though.
Yeah, okay.
And
I'll try it.
I mean, you've been told by people that work with feet. Yeah, let us know. Would you pay to see photos? Is that what photos of Mike's feet? Rubbing them, maybe?
Probably like pouring ketchup and mustard on them and stuff.
Great, we'll do that.
Anyway, this week's guest is great.
This is a weird intro so far.
This week's guest, Shawn Lawlor.
Sorry, Shawn.
Shawn Lawlor, former co-worker of you, which we didn't talk that much about in the podcast. We talk a lot about his book.
Uh-huh.
His book, Boom Road.
Most
here.
importantly, we talk about his debut novel, Boom Road, which is inspired by his hometown in Miramichi, New Brunswick. Boom Road is a real place, he lets us know.
Yeah.
And talks about the character development and the writing process. That was one of my favorite parts, was how this book even came to be.
Yeah.
And Shawn works full-time in government, has for a number of years, and he and I worked together. I don't know if we actually landed on the exact date, but more or less 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Give or take. And he and I had the same role, but with different ministers. So we spent a lot of time together, and you kind of have this mutual understanding of what that life and job is like. And it was just really nice to reconnect with him and talk shop before and after. We didn't get too much into that part on the podcast, like you said, but Shawn was always certainly well liked. You're going to pick up on that right away in the interview, but everybody really respected him and liked working with him, and he was a friend to everybody. So it was great to catch up in that way too.
Yeah, I just met him a couple times in the past, just kind of in passing at events, liberal events when he worked there. But I didn't really know him, and this chat, you really find out how nice a guy he is, and just easygoing, and lots of different interests, and just a nice, cool guy.
Yeah, and he's naturally funny. He talks about doing a bit of stand-up in his life, which would be terrifying to me. But you see that in the book. There's kind of this range of emotions, and I let him know, and this is true, that I looked forward to waking up in the morning, because I read every morning, and knowing that this book was there.
Yeah.
So we're happy to share this with everybody else and make our heartfelt recommendation to pick up your own copy.
Boom Road by Shawn Lawlor.
Well, let's dive right into it and hear it from the author himself.
And let me know if you want to pay money to see my feet. Okay, cheers.
Cheers.
Make it.
Like your house or your road or whatever you grew up, like you can, people just say they're from Miramichi. Like,
okay.
So it's a pretty wide scathe of area.
So asking if you know Louis is a little bit...
Drives a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, again.
I know a Louis, but that's not even his real name.
So you were born there?
I was born, in the
river,
in the city
of
Miramichi, which has only been a city since '95, like amalgamated the same year as Halifax, because it was 3 townships. It's more like New Glasgow,
okay,
right, where you have like New Glasgow, Stellarton, and what's the one I'm thinking about?
Trenton.
Thank
maybe?
you, Trenton.
Yeah.
It has like Newcastle, Chatham, and Douglastown. And now it's kind of incorporated a bunch of surrounding areas.
So how come people from Miramichi say, I'm from the Miramichi? Is it because of the river?
Because of the river.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's because, and everything it was really funny. I wasn't thinking about it until we were up there last summer for an extended amount of time, but Cheryl had not been there for an extended amount of time before. We were there for 3 or 4 weeks.
Cheryl's your wife?
Cheryl's my wife, yeah. And so she's like, there's so many bridges. And I hadn't thought about it before, but it's like the Riverlands in like Game of Thrones or something, where like everything is all the communities, regardless of what distance is in between them, they all kind of revolve around the river, and that's pretty common, I guess. I would say most people, most societies and communities kind of flow around water, right? For the most part. So the river was everything. It was how people got around. It's how they did business. It's how they did all sorts of things forever.
So there's that industry heritage there.
Yeah.
Of using the river.
Yeah.
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 Same as I'm from the Annapolis Valley.
Yeah.
So the Annapolis River, of course, is very prominent, and logging went through there
100%.
and all of that is relatable.
Yeah.
That's the Maritimes, I guess, for you. But.
Was it a logging community? What was the industry based around the river?
Absolutely. I mean, New Brunswick in general, very much centered around shipbuilding.
Yeah,
which is why there's the big ship on the provincial flag, right? It was mainly around like shipbuilding up there. Miramichi in particular, a lot of logging. I mean, if you looked at a topographical map of New Brunswick, the center of it is just trees for the most part, and then it's just kind of communities all around the outskirts, right? So it kind of is very much centered around logging. I mean, and Miramichi, not the only community where the logging and timber industry would have been important, but it was definitely the centerpiece of that area for at least 150 years, I'd say. The pulp and paper mill closed 2005, 2006, something like that, maybe a little earlier.
Okay.
And has not reopened, and nothing has taken its place, and it's just unfortunately this derelict lot that unfortunately pretty unsightly. but it employed something similar to like the one in Pictou. We have 500 or 600 people,
Right.
but then all the spin-off jobs that come from that, right?
What drives the community now?
I'd say tourism's a pretty big component to that. They've really zeroed in on that aspect. There are other businesses in the area, but I would say that it's just mostly like a combination of tourism, small businesses coming out of that. Honestly, there's been, and not a surprise because I think it's in everywhere you go, is a lot of micro breweries and craft breweries and gin distilleries and these things that have kind of fired up. And
how have they all done so well?
people like alcohol.
Yeah.
People like booze. People like booze.
Yeah.
So it's I think that's kind of what is driving the area now in terms of a lot of economic development. They have zeroed in. There's a lot of festivals. Every month has, and sometimes more than once, specifically in the summertime, but every month has like a major festival. There's one in January called the White Gold Festival. That's just a big snowmobile sort of festival, but there's a lot of music and everything. And then as you get into the summer, there's Irish festival, rock and roll festival, Scottish festival, all these different times, and like in June, July, August. Yeah.
There's a lot going. Have you ever played there that you can think
I
of?
have. I can't remember where or when, but I know I have.
Yeah.
There's some good detail for you.
Yeah.
Well,
Very memorable.
You've played a lot of places now,
Yeah.
so in fairness.
Yeah.
Yeah, over the years.
I think it was in a theater. What would the
The
theater be?
Vogue.
Yeah.
The Vogue Theater.
Yeah, I think that's where it was.
Yeah, it unfortunately burned a few years ago.
Oh, no way.
Burned to the ground. Yeah, it was terrible. It used to be an actual movie theater where I think I saw the Blair Witch Project and they had to change reels like midway through. It was just the one, sort of like the Oxford was down here.
Yes.
On
Love those
on
old
Oxford Street.
theaters.
Yeah, it was really cool. And then they kind of converted it. Once they put in a Cineplex, they converted it to a legitimate theater, and it was awesome. And I remember hearing and seeing like other performers there, like James Mullinger, for example, and talking about like what a great theater, like what great acoustics this place has, and all these things. And I remember he put a big post up about when it burned down, what a loss it was. Right.
So no rebuild or anything?
Don't think so.
Jeez.
No.
That is a big loss.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, because
And
it
you
was
can't
housing people.
rebuild a place that has that kind of history to it and aesthetic even, I imagine.
It was great.
Yeah.
I was fortunate enough to once, the only time I was ever paid any amount of money to do stand-up comedy was there. I got paid like $50, I think. So bucket list.
Yes.
Item crossed off, but I was with some really good performers who, are regular stand-ups and actors. And so I got to MC for them while they were there up the Miramichi.
that's
So
neat.
got to experience it before it unfortunately burned down. But yeah.
And so what finally brought you to Nova Scotia? Because you've called this home for a number of years now.
Yeah, a little over 20 years now. I moved here, I think August, September of 2005. So
Yeah, 20 plus years.
I mean,
We're at that age where we
Oh,
can
man.
say that.
I know, like it's kind of strange to look back upon the last 20 years. I think for everybody, when you start looking back, when I moved here, I had just moved back from Japan. I had taught English overseas for a small amount of time, and prior to that, I was living in Ottawa, working for government at the time. And
A man of the world here.
well, it was more like I wanted to go right after university.
Yeah.
And then I was going to go with a couple of friends, and it just kind of fell to pieces. And somebody started seeing somebody, and
Sure.
they're out of the group, and then they're leaving, and so it kind of fell to pieces. But 3 or 4 years later, we all kind of the four of us found ourselves in a similar place to be like, okay, we can all try this again. And we went to just outside of Yokohama. So going from Yokohama to Tokyo is like going from Halifax, Dartmouth, just across the bay.
Okay.
And we lived about 20 minutes outside that major metropolitan area. So to go from like Miramichi, like University of Fredericton,
my
pretty
God.
small, like even Ottawa, obviously only like 1 million people roughly, right?
Yeah.
To go to like a place where they have more people in this city than they do in your entire country.
Yeah.
It's pretty popular. So-
Unbelievable.
yeah, and it's beautiful. It's wonderful. They're fantastic. And when they find that you're from anywhere in the Maritimes, Atlantic Canada, they love it because you're so close to where Inner Green Gables is.
Oh, that's the big thing.
Oh yeah, I mean
Ah.
there's a pretty general affinity to Canadians in
Okay.
Japan.
Yeah. And globally, hopefully.
Hopefully,
But,
yeah, I think for the most part, yeah,
Mhm.
I'd like to think so. But I would point on a map where I was from originally from middle in northern New Brunswick or in Miramichi, and so close they can see it on a map, so close to Prince Edward Island.
So that still pulls weight, Anna Green Gables.
Big time. I mean, they still have tens of thousands of tourists every year.
How did it take off so much in that part of the world?
It's part of their elementary school curriculum.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
So they learn about it in school.
Huh.
And it may be junior high. I'm not entirely sure. I know it's part of their school curriculum for a lot of them. At least it certainly was.
But it's not even a part of our curriculum.
No, I know.
Right?
But like, it's so.
Neither is our own Canadian history, though.
Fair enough.
Like,
yeah. But I think I remember talking to a student over there, and she was saying it was such a foreign concept in a lot of respects. Anna Green Gables, first of all, she has red hair. So not very many people born with natural red hair in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, a lot of open space, which a great deal of population doesn't have the ability to have. You have to travel an hour, 2 hours by train at least to get to some open spots over there.
Mm-hmm.
And a very outspoken female, which I think certainly not so much now, but decades prior was not as
of course
common. In places like Japan, so that's why
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's really weird. I had to ask, I'm like, why does everybody here love Anna Green Gables? Not that it's bad, but like,
have you been back to Japan since?
No,
that time.
No,
okay.
It's a long flight.
Yeah,
it's a long way. It's pretty much as far away as you can get.
Yeah.
From where you are right now, roughly, right? So it's about. It took a full 24 hours of travel to get there. Yeah, flew out of Halifax and.
It's
Toronto,
still amazing
Vancouver.
that we can go around the other side of the world in any amount of time, I guess. But
and Japan's a beautiful country, and the people are fantastic. They're wonderful. Highly recommend anybody having the opportunity to go. Give yourself 3 weeks.
Yeah,
because it's 12-hour time difference.
Yeah.
We're actually planning a trip there right now.
Is that
Just
right?
crazy.
I didn't know if you were going to say anything.
Oh, cool.
So we've been watching YouTube videos on Japan, and places to go, and areas of Tokyo, and is it worth going to Hiroshima, and just all the things. So
and we have about 3 weeks is what we're planning.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's I didn't know if you were gonna. We haven't really talked about this with anyone. But so it's our 10-year anniversary this year in February, but we're extending. We're thinking of going in May, June-ish to Japan. So
it'll be warm.
Yeah,
it'll be warm if you're in the Tokyo area that time of year. It's pretty hot. It's kind of similar to New York City in the summertime, so expect some humidity.
Yeah, especially in a city of that saturation of bodies.
They love their air conditioning, same as a lot of cities do.
Go in 7-Eleven to cool down.
It's awesome.
That's what we did in Thailand.
Yeah.
There's 7-Eleven. We got to go get some water and
just to regulate our body temperature.
Yeah. Well, the beauty of that too is you go into that 7-Eleven to cool down. You can grab a beer.
Yeah.
You can grab something to eat because I find that there's 7-Elevens I knew in Japan. Like it was one across the street from where we lived. And we'll go over, grab a couple beer, grab something to eat because they always had like a lot of different kind of already like legitimately ready-made foods, not packaged, but things that could sell in the shop. Yeah. And you could pretty much just live there. Right?
Can you drink in public in Japan?
So you could when I was there.
Yeah.
You had to be sensible about it, which is why you can't drink in public around here sometimes. But like you can buy a beer out of a vending machine. Yeah. At that point, it was 300 yen, which was roughly $3 Canadian.
Okay.
And just hit the button and a tall boy roll out, and you can just walk around with it. They typically like you to be pretty mindful.
Yeah. I gather they like that, generally speaking, not just if you're drinking, which is part of what I'm drawn to about Japanese culture is that they are calm and polite and honest. At least this is what I've heard.
They are.
And so I'm looking forward to kind of being in an immersive environment where that's generally the culture. Like, this is how we treat each other.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate, and at least in my experience there. Again, we're talking 20 years ago, but, I do remember even at the time, as an example with respect to cell phones, that first of all, it wasn't even called putting your phone on vibrate or silent. It was called manner mode.
Okay.
So it didn't make any noise, but it's considered very rude, at least then. I don't know now, but to answer your phone while you're on the train or you're on the subway. I think it's a noise factor where you're talking to somebody, but then secondly, there's just not enough room to answer your phone because sometimes in the train there's an elbow like right here and there's like another person right here.
There are as many people in one city as our country, it's to be expected.
Pretty packed at rush hour, but it's fantastic. You can literally set your watch to the train. The only thing that may disrupt it is tremors or earthquakes, typically speaking, which are pretty common.
Okay.
Tremors, like the giant worms from the movie.
Just exactly like
they have them there. I researched that.
Kevin Bacon comes in, helps you out, you know. But like,
hopefully,
we would feel on average 3 or 4 tremors a week.
Oh, it's that common? Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's pretty common. Like you'd sit there and the water in your glass would shimmer a little bit, right? And
are they expecting a big one anytime soon, like LA or?
I think that they had.
He's like, I think in May.
May, June, when you guys are going, definitely. There was the large one about 15 years ago there in Fukushima, but that was northern, like about 4 hours north of Tokyo. They were expecting a big one in Tokyo when we were living there in that area. It never happened, but I do remember feeling an earthquake and not knowing what that was. I got vertigo. Yeah, because it kind of throws the building from side to side, right? And you kind of feel dizzy. And
it is weird. I've only experienced it once. I was living in Vancouver, but it's you can't really describe the physical sensation of what that's like.
It's one of the I was teaching a class and I sat down for a second. I didn't feel good. Like I thought I was gonna faint or kind of fall over. And a couple of my students came to me and they said, "Are you okay?" And I was like, yeah. I was like, did anybody else feel that? And they're like, yeah, that was an earthquake. Like just totally like that was just a rain shower or something, right? Like it wasn't a serious deal. They're like, so if your building is moving side to side, that's good. That's not a big earthquake. If it's moving up and down, get underneath something.
Okay.
It's fantastic. You will
It's
love
fantastic.
It. No, not the earthquakes. Or the volcanoes. Or the tsunamis or typhoons. But
you're making it sound pretty appealing here.
Hey, Dad. No.
It's awesome. We were 2 hours train ride from Mount Fuji and we could see it so clear from our apartment. Like, and really, I shouldn't say even 2 hours, probably like 90 minutes train ride. And it is just an incredible country. The people are fantastic. They're wonderful. Yeah, you'll love it. You'll love it.
We're excited. We're in the early stages of planning. Like nothing's booked, but this is where we think we're going to land. So maybe we'll pick your brain more on that after.
And the food.
We could talk. Yeah, the food
food's incredible.
Goes without saying.
Yeah.
But you referenced earlier that you got your first stand-up comedy gig at this theater. I'd like to, or like paid opportunity.
Gig. That's right. Yeah.
I'd like to talk more about your experience with stand-up because for me, I think I said earlier, this would be if I lost a bet, the consequences would be you have to now go do stand-up. That's how much it terrifies me. I know you, so I know that you're naturally a funny guy and have a good sense of humor, but it's a lot different having a set of jokes and standing up in front of an audience. Like, what made you even want to try that? Because it's like the bravest thing ever.
Well, first of all, thanks for saying I'm funny, and I think that was kind of part of it. I think it was. I was kind of proving to myself and, watching stand-up comedy all my life and, watching Just for Laughs and all the, the great shows on CBC or watching The Kids in the Hall and things like that, right? And getting into comedy at a really young age and wondering if I was funny enough to tell other people than just at a party and make them laugh, right? So if I was at a house party or whatever and you're telling a story, that's one thing. And everyone can tell all kinds of great funny stories there, and they do around the campfire or whatever, right, or kitchen party. But I wanted to know if I could make people laugh that didn't know me, and whether or not the jokes were funny. I kind of just wanted to try it and test myself out. And it was I don't think there was any time I ever did it where I felt comfortable. Now, in fairness, I also didn't do it all that often. I think I did it a total of like 20 times. 19 of those were amateur night. Yeah, obviously, and I probably bombed at least half of those, maybe 70% of them. Some nights were really good.
What does bombing mean?
When you're telling, I think, a number of jokes in a, far be it for me to say what legitimate stand-up comics would say, I think, but like, I'd say if you're telling a couple of number of jokes in a row and none of them are landing.
Okay.
And you try to compensate or do it just the room is flat and quiet. It doesn't even have to I'd almost rather be booed, I think.
Yeah.
than for it to just be that like so deathly quiet. And there's like 30 people in the room if you're lucky, or 60 or something like that, depending on if you're at Yuck Yucks or whatever place. I mean, it's really great in Halifax right now, the comedy scene. And I think that like in the mid to late 2000s, when Picnic Face was coming up, and they, at Joker's, that spot on Spring Garden Road, that comedy club, that like it was just them and Yuck Yucks for a little while. I think every night of the week now you can go somewhere in Halifax and find stand-up comedy, right? Sunday night through Saturday. And so I think that for me it was more of like, can I do that?
So it was a challenge to yourself.
I think so. Yeah.
Is that in your nature that you like to challenge yourself?
I would say no, but I think that the opposite's probably true.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to like we have to constantly challenge ourselves to be like better humans or whatever the case might be. But I think challenging yourself is a good way to try and see whether or not you can do things. Like I'm within reason.
Going to Japan from little old Miramichi sounds like a challenge to a young fella.
It was scary.
Yeah.
I think I'd only been on a plane like a few handful of times before that. And that was like Ottawa to Fredericton or Moncton, so 2-hour flight. Japan, it was great. I was fascinated with the country my entire life. I think as a kid, you watch ninja movies and you're just like, I want to become a ninja when I grow up. And they're all from Japan, obviously. It was a challenge. I liked teaching. Come from a family of teachers on both sides.
Yeah.
A lot of teachers in the family, including my sister. I'm the youngest of 5, and my sister's a teacher. And then so I went to Japan to teach and went with 3 other friends. They're all from Pictou County. One of them is still there. He's been there 21 years.
Wow.
Got married.
He found
kids.
a home.
Yeah, he loves it, obviously. And I think that we all loved it. But going from a town, and like I did not grow up in, like I said, the town or the city of Miramichi. I grew up about 20 minutes outside of that.
Yeah.
I think that we had a gas station, and there's a Subway and an agency liquor store there now. It's growing up. But to go to that, and even being in Ottawa, for example, a city of around 1 million people, is kind of staggering when you'd only ever been in Miramichi or Fredericton. But like you were saying, Mike, like going to Japan is a really eye-opening experience where I think they fly you in purposely at nighttime to try to get you adjusted to the time zone, so that the jet lag wears off faster, which is why they started on-the-job training 3 days after we arrive, is to try to get you on the clock a little bit better. But we got there at nighttime. There was a bar right underneath our apartment. And we went down, had a beer, played a game of pool, came back up, went to bed. And then you wake up and you look, it kind of feels like you're on another planet because the shingles on the roofs are different, and the traffic, they drive on the opposite side. In Japan, it's the UK government, I think, built their highways and constructed their roads and sort of infrastructure. And so they drive on the opposite side, which is thing you got to watch out for when you're crossing the road because you're looking this way and there's a car coming the other way.
We tend to just shadow somebody if we're traveling in another country, like basically piggyback them.
Yeah.
Find a confident local.
Yes, find a confident local and just glue yourselves to their body crossing the street until you get your rhythm.
Yeah. But like into like the shock of like predominantly living in, obviously living in Canada where it's you don't have to travel far to get to a wide open space or a rural area, to going to a place where it is such a heavily concentrated, group of people in a city that is massive and densely populated. And if you go, to Shibuya Station, which is the one that you would see in movies where there's like 8 crosswalks.
Yes.
It's often filmed in movies, John Wick and all sorts of different movies that like, I think more than 1 million people travel through that station a day. So it's just wild to see that. It's fantastic. It's really fun.
So these are a couple challenges you took on in life to become the person you are. Was writing your book a challenge? What was the idea behind bringing that to life?
A huge challenge. Small book.
Speaking of Small Boy from Miramichi, inspired much of the content of this book, Boom Road.
Yeah, it obviously is. I mean, Boom Road is a real place. It is literally across the river from where I grew up. In the middle of the river are booms. And they're little small, I mean, you could call them small little islands, but effectively they were there we were talking earlier about logging. And so the trees were cut way far up in the Miramichi River. and they were all marked with different colors for different companies. And so then they were sent, on a log drive down the river, and the booms were there for to help steer the right logs to the right different companies, right? So one company would have a red marker on them, or piece of whatever. The next one would have blue, another one would have green or something to identify which company they were cut from, and then therefore made for as they got closer to the river, and then forced towards Miramichi Bay, where they would construct ships, right? And so the booms were in the middle of the river, and then people would, we'd see like the log drivers would like jump back and forth to them, and we've all seen the log drivers waltz and those sort of things. So I think that was something similar to that. Yeah. So a huge challenge, small book, it's like 230 pages. I think I cut 10,000 words out of it.
Wow.
So, kill your darlings.
That's a lot of darlings.
It's a lot of darlings.
Yeah.
And it's all for the betterment of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so it was a challenge. I used to write and obviously read a lot when you grew up in the middle of nowhere with no cable and maybe an antenna that'll get you CBC sometimes and CTV on a good day.
French channel, watch some Habs games.
That's right. Like Channel 3. So I think I started writing more or less in junior high or high school, and acting and being on stage and theater productions and stuff like that, right? Carrying that on into university in particular, specifically with theater. And I had been doing screenplay writing for a number of years in the early mid 2000s until around 2012, 2013, kind of just put all that on hold for career. More of a more legitimized career, for lack of a better way to put it, a more 9-to-5 job, for I guess a better way, and was trying to do some stand up and things like that. And I hadn't done anything creative in a few years, so I needed a creative outlet. And this is definitely a pandemic book that I needed to get a creative outlet during the pandemic. We're all home a lot, and I just started writing. I started with one sentence that struck me one day when I was walking with my wife.
What was it?
It's the first line in the novel, which is most times when you see a pair of skates, they look lonely.
It's a beautiful first line.
Well, I think that everyone, to some degree, was feeling a level of isolation during the pandemic. It was weird, right? Those first 6, 9, 12 months were kind of strange, right? A little, I don't know if scary is the word, but maybe.
To some, sure.
For sure. And I think, the fact that we couldn't go out to the pub, or you couldn't go and see a live theater show, or you couldn't go to the movies, right? Kind of isolated people, or made you feel a little bit more alone. Not necessarily like that I was by myself. I was there with my family, thankfully, and that was awesome. But I did feel like, I don't know why the skates looked lonely to me when we were out walking in our neighborhood. I saw them in someone's garage, and that's kind of the thought that hit me. And I just decided I was going to write a short story, or was going to begin writing.
So you had no idea where it was going to go?
No,
you just had that line.
No idea. And I had no idea what I was doing when writing something of that length. I think I'd probably written something 10,000 words before as a short story, or university paper or something, right, on something. But I got to about the 30,000 word mark. So, for example, my book is about 74,000 words. I was like, this is starting to turn into something longer. So I reached out to a really good friend of mine who's an author and playwright in his own right, and a great actor. Is a friend of mine, Ryan Griffith from Fredericton, and he runs a theater company there, and the Next Folding Theater Company. I said, hey man, like, I'm writing something and I don't know what it is. Would you mind just taking a look for me and tell me if this is something cohesive in an actual story? Coincidentally, he was also writing a novel. And so we began a daily challenge of 15 minutes a day and then we checked in with each other at the end of each day, which was sort of like you had to sit down and try to write for 15 minutes. And that's your
accountability partner.
Yeah, pretty much. It became, and we were just talking about challenges, right? And so it became sort of a challenge, not a competition, because we're really good friends, and I acted in plays that he had written and all sorts of things. We acted together, but the fact that like we could sit down and challenge each other to be like, okay, it would be like 15 minutes, 50 words. Sometimes those 15 minutes, it was, maybe getting 1 or 2 sentences. But as I learned in writing a book, it's a real marathon, regardless of whether it's 200 pages or 2,000 pages. It's a real marathon. And if I had 2 sentences today, that's 2 more than I had the day before.
Mm-hmm.
That consistency was important. And so sometimes that 15 minutes was barely getting through 15 minutes. Sometimes that 15 minutes turned into 2 hours. And then eventually I kind of just had a novel. I didn't even know how I got there. Didn't know how to end it. Worst part, hardest part I found. But
Yeah.
and then I got to a point where, again, I said I think it was more like a little over 300 pages when I was complete.
Did you write it chronologically, like start to finish? Is that how you approach the unfolding of the story?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think in writing screenplays in the past, whether they were feature or for sitcom or, and television shows, trying to write them in that chronological order was kind of how I wrote the book. And unfortunately, none of those screenplays or anything amounted to anything at the time, per se. We did get, we approached different producers, different networks, CBC, global other networks and producers, Telefilm in particular, but they didn't go anywhere in terms of like getting on the air, obviously, unfortunately. But like at the same time, a lot of trial and error and those challenges really bring a lot to where this kind of came from, where I had never written anything that nearly that long before. And it is very interesting to write something that long, whereas in the past, I might have been writing something that was 22 minutes long for a sitcom.
Mm-hmm.
And you can go back and proofread it pretty quickly. But when you already have written 30,000 words, that's a lot to go back and proofread. And I was like, oh my God, this guy's name isn't even the same. Or, it's just the kind of things you forgot about, right? Because it was just a constant stream of typing sort of thing, right?
There's such a purity in that approach. And I find the more, at least in our experience, that we've worked at art, the more aware you are of what you're creating. So I now have a hard time just making a painting for the joy of it. It's what is this collection about? It's this bigger thing before you've even taken the first small step.
Yeah.
And so hearing that this started from a walk, feeling lonely, and seeing a pair of skates in someone's garage is a really genuine way of creativity that is easy to lose and easy to forget of how that can happen. So I love that this is the story behind how this book came to be. You didn't set out, I'm going to write a book.
No idea.
I'm going to write a sentence is where this began. And I think that's a good thing to keep in mind for people that are maybe looking just to look at step one.
Yeah, I think so. And it was a lot. That process was a big learning process too. It was like, okay, now I have this. So now what do I do with it? And that's a big question. I think, and you can Google that and you will find some helpful tips and answers. And there's all kinds of forums and Facebook groups and things where you can find those answers. But I was fortunate enough because I had been to a screenwriting seminar in PEI that was hosted by Telefilm and a few other networks. And there were some folks there that were a legitimate, teacher and professor from Carleton University was there. This was back in like 2007 or 2008. But one of the people that I met there became a novelist as well. And so because of that connection, his name is Steve Mayoff, and he lives in PEI, and he's written a few novels. And so I asked Steve, I was like, hey man, like, what do I, like, how did you do that? Like, how did you find an editor? How did you find a publisher? How do you find any of these things? Did you self-publish, which a lot of people do, and they turn out some incredible novels, but that hustle is a little bit harder.
Mm-hmm.
If you're fortunate enough, like I certainly was, to have a publisher take your book on, it still lends a level of, I don't want to say legitimacy, but gravity to it, I think. Don't get me wrong, there are a lot of very good self-published novels out there, and some people have become very famous with their own self-published novels. But I approached this acquaintance, Steve, and he put me in touch with his editor, and who's also a publisher. Galleon Books is the name of the publishing company out of Moncton, New Brunswick, and Lee Thompson is the editor and publisher. And he was like, he's like, I'd love to take a look at it. And so he was happy to edit it. And then he kind of advised that I should try and shop around a little bit with respect to publishers. But it was another huge learning process, not realizing how much editorializing I was doing in the book and my own thoughts and opinions on things. Like, oh wow, I was like, that's not cool. Like, that's not the character. That's me, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not this character, or that's not his sibling or his father, or whatever the case might be. Yeah, so it's a real learning process. The whole thing was one long, and I wouldn't say one long, like difficult challenge, although there's always lots of challenges, but exciting, I think too. Whereas like you're trying to figure out if this is a cohesive story in the first place. And there are some really, what I think I also learned is that there are some incredibly talented like local authors out there.
Absolutely.
It's really cool.
What would be kind of your Cole's Notes version of what the book is about for our audience that's listening? And I don't want to put you on the spot if you've not really thought about how you would articulate that, but generally speaking, maybe what are some inspirations behind it or some general themes and storylines?
Yeah, so it's a story. And that's what I wanted it to be. I kind of didn't want it to be something so firm, and I do feel like the novel almost did take 5 or 6 different turns from where it ended up. I did want it to just be an interesting story. I find that film or books that are just like a story kind of caught in time.
Slice of life kind of thing.
So to speak, right?
Yeah.
I was also, the book takes place in 1982. I was 3, so don't really remember 82, but the early 80s I kind of have some memories about. You guys were born in 82, so it's like, you know, it's not too far away, you know, but it was far enough away that there was no internet.
Yeah.
You know, there was no internet for another almost, 10 to 15 years really, in any major capacity from a public perspective. And so you still had to pick up a phone, and if it wasn't a dial pad, it was a push pad maybe, right, if you're lucky. And I wanted it to be where answering machines were still there. You still had to turn the antenna, to get a good reception for the hockey game or for the ball game or whatever show you were watching. Whatever was popular in the 82, Dallas? I don't know. But like, I kind of wanted it to be sort of removed, but not so far removed that you couldn't really remember it or remember, or, generally speaking, that people of a certain age category couldn't remember a time when that wasn't a reality.
Yes.
So really, I think the book is about a guy in his late 30s, and he's gone through some pretty serious personal tragedy, and he's just trying to live his life. But so often, and I think our lives, something out of left field comes in to play, and it just completely disrupts your life.
Yeah.
And that is sort of the basis of this novel, where like life happens. How do you adjust to it? This guy, the main character, Jackie, he's just a pretty plain guy who wants to go to work and sip beer and watch the ball game and go canoeing and be very, very, kind of not have any drama.
The characters in this book are hands down my favorite part. I really loved it. It was a book I genuinely woke up. I read every morning. This is kind of my routine and almost meditation at this point.
Yeah.
It's something I looked forward to getting out of bed at 5 a.m. because I knew I would get to read more of the book. But being from the Annapolis Valley in particular, and I know that you know this, but the characters are just so familiar to me. You get to know them a lot through their dialogue with one another, which I found exciting. And I even found myself as I was reading it, they all had a Valley accent. I know that's not where the book is based, but I couldn't help but I know Donnie, I know that guy. So I'm speaking it in Donnie's voice as I'm reading it. And that just made me kind of have more of an emotional connection to the story itself, because the people just felt like the people I grew up with.
Yeah, I think, well, that's great to hear. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And I've been a little bit surprised of some of those similar comments, I think. And I think that was one of I had 2 main goals, I think, with the book. Once we were going to move forward with publishing it, and Lee moved forward with publishing it, my editor ended up becoming my publisher. That wasn't necessarily how it was, initiated, but that, one goal was to make it very relatable, in so much as somebody like that, whether you're from the Annapolis Valley, Miramichi Valley, or you're from Cape Breton, Manitoba. I've had friends from Manitoba or elsewhere, but I know these people. I kind of grew up with these people, whether or not you know that street.
Exactly.
Or whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
You do know people like that. And I was kind of hoping to tap into that relatability aspect to it.
And what does that mean? The characters are They swear. They're a little rough. They're funny. They're smoking a lot.
Yeah.
Like it's just, and I know it's not meant to be a stereotype, but it's like we can kind of giggle over either being in part that way ourselves or certainly having those influences in our childhoods.
I kind of hoped so. I didn't. And it was like I said, the two goals were relatability. And so I was really apprehensive about how it might be received at home.
Mm-hmm.
And Boom Road literally is a real place, and it's a beautiful stretch of highway or road, up in the Miramichi area. And I was concerned about, and as soon as I announced, on big announcement on Facebook or Instagram or whatever on social media that we were publishing my novel, my first thought was, holy cow, like there's actually probably more swear words involved, but people are actually going to read this now.
Yeah,
that was a terrifying feeling. I was like, whoa, what did I do? Like, why did I do this? And I was concerned about what people might think at home because I didn't want them to feel a negative stereotype associated with it at all. In fact, that was the other goal. I wanted it to sort of be a bit of a love letter to my hometown and where I grew up, and literally where I grew up, and the people that I was surrounded by. And there's nobody in the book that is based upon one specific person that I knew or I heard about, or a story, about somebody in the area. I think everybody's a bit of a composite, of either people in my family or people in just the stories you hear about when growing up, right? So those were the two goals, was the relatability and the fact that I was really hoping that people from home would also feel like that. I was concerned. Yeah, a lot of swearing, not gonna lie. Like, I mean, it's like, I think it's one swear word for every 3 pages. I think I calculated it out as, and I removed a lot. I removed a ton.
It's great. I love it.
Is an appropriate amount of swear?
It's an appropriate amount of swearing. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
You're able now to look back with hindsight at your previous writing experiences, the script writing, as a learning experience that prepared you to write this and be in a position where you know how to do this and take these little lessons you learned along the way. Was there ever a point where you felt disappointment in not finding a home for those that you worked on, the scripts and when you reached out to different people?
Oh yeah, for sure. And you try not to take it as like personal rejection.
Yeah.
But again, if you're a screenplay writer or an author or whatever it is you're writing, you're pouring some part of yourself into those words or into those characters or whatever. And so you have to learn, I think, in some of like day-to-day work life and the people that I've had to work with, that you don't take it personally when something's rejected, that it is more like, this isn't fit, so we'll just move on. And that was the case with certain things. We had I remember myself, and I mentioned my friend Ryan earlier, that we presented, we've actually filmed the pilot for a sitcom that we had created, and we aired it at the Silver Wave Film Festival in Fredericton. This is quite a few years ago, 2011 maybe. It was great. Won Best Comedy. CBC wanted nothing to do with it, and we thought it was a perfect home for CBC. It was about 2 park rangers that were kind of like going around, and anyway, it was a good concept. We thought it was a really funny concept and had a lot of legs to it, and they were looking for different kinds of sitcoms. And they were looking for more family-oriented sort of sitcoms. And that's what they were pretty plain. And so, to your question, the point was like you try not to take it too personally. That your personal work is not what fits right now, right? And so that's the same for novels. It's not a novel that's for everybody. No novel is.
And you hear of so many of the world's most famous authors who have a pile of rejection letters so high that they can't even lift it anymore.
Yeah.
Like Stephen King, like one of the most famous authors of all time, was basically giving up on writing, and his partner took his manuscript out of the trash and submitted it to someone, and it got published. Like, you hear of those types of stories all the time in that world.
Well, and you mentioned somebody who's like, I like a ton of Stephen King books, but not every book I read by Stephen King do I think, wow, that was a great book.
Sure.
But they're you're also speaking about somebody who literally, for all intents and purposes, kind of created the modern horror genre in the last 60 years. But yeah, I think Carrie was rejected a ton of times before it was finally published, right? and he was, supplementing. He had a family. He had a wife and at least one small kid at the time. He was a school teacher.
Yeah.
So he was just trying to get by, and somebody finally picked it up. And so, and then he becomes one of the most prolific authors probably of our day. I think also another relatable author, maybe here in Atlantic Canada, because so much of his work is based in Maine, in New England, and very similar topography, the people, I think where he grew up, and those sorts of aspects in small town Maine or, New England, right? So it's always interesting to see. I didn't think anecdotally about an aspect in my book, but like, not to give too much away or anything, but there's a few dream sequences and so forth that are not really dreams or nightmares. They were the funnest parts to write. And I don't know why. I had never written. I can't watch a horror movie at all. Terrified.
We can't either.
Oh man, I'm rattled. I watched Hereditary. I don't know how many. I'm still rattled.
I watched Fire in the Sky when I was 14.
Oh yeah,
and that was enough
the
for
Alien
me.
one. Yeah,
no,
it's
thank
terrifying
you.
movie, right?
Yeah, done.
Like that, Event Horizon, those terrifying movies. But like, those were the ones those were aspects that came out in my writing that I had never written anything horror related ever. It was always comedy written stuff.
That's
all the screenplay stuff that we written was all comedy, whether it was feature. Writing a lot of feature and screenplays with my friend Kylie, and like pitching, always comedy, never drama, and never horror at all. And so to me, writing I don't know if it's horror or not, but certainly a little bit more of a scarier element was something that was, maybe it was exciting because it was very different for me, but it was kind of invigorating too. So I think it's always stepping out of your comfort zone can be a good thing.
That's something I had planned to ask you about today. And Mike, I'd be curious how you might talk about this question as well, because you're both what I'll call multi-genre writers. You're a songwriter, but you're also someone who has written comedy for Town Hero sketches. You've written nonfiction, essays, that kind of thing. And Shawn, you're transitioning from screenwriting to writing jokes to your first novel. Is it more just about the writing itself that you feel connected to creatively? Because like in music, for example, you're not writing country songs and rock songs and blues songs. Like you're kind of within your lane, I'll say. But with writing, it's as though those rules don't really apply. So how is that different?
I think it's all, for me, just storytelling at the end of the day. And if it goes in one direction as opposed to another, that's just the way it happened to go in that moment. But I think at the end of the day, I'm just trying to tell some type of story, and there may be different ways to tell it. But for me, maybe it's best in a song or something in to tell this particular story, to convey that particular message. I think that's how I approach it, is knowing that I have my own skill set and how the best way to get that across to other people is.
How would you think about that?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, it's a really interesting question because I feel like, I don't know. I'm trying to answer that accurately. And it's interesting, like, I didn't think about it until after I had written the novel, how much dialogue there is. And it's a fair amount of dialogue, so much so that the editor had to say, we need more narrative here. Like, it's a lot of dialogue, but that was probably the translation of moving from screenplay writing, which is all dialogue.
Right.
And you don't have to worry about what clothes they're wearing necessarily. That's for the set designer to determine, or the whatever's doing production on that film or on that. And that's for them to decide what they're necessarily wearing, unless it's, important to the scene or whatever it might be. So to have I think the book is probably mostly dialogue in a lot of respects. And so the editor said, we need more narrative here. I need some more context here. You need to explain this scene, or where they're sitting in the hospital, if that's the case, or whatever that might be. And so to have that translation move over was difficult. Some of it felt very natural. I felt, probably not surprisingly, I probably felt the most comfortable in writing the dialogue and swearing, and to have to really explain. And I remember talking with some other writers about how, like, the detail that goes into it. So we were talking earlier about I write in a certain way that may or may not be the way that somebody else writes, and they're both correct. That I write with a steady stream of consciousness that like I barely want to look at what I've just written in the page before or the sentence before, for that matter. It's just about getting it out of my brain and out onto the page, and then I'll go back and edit 70 times afterwards.
Do you do that right away? Once you get the stream of consciousness out, are you then the next day, okay, I got to get back and work on this, or you wait until you're done, like a whole lot of it?
So it kind of cuts both ways. Now
Yeah.
I'm trying to edit every 10,000 words,
Yeah.
so as to not have to or maybe every 5,000 words,
Yeah.
that I'm not forgetting where that person, that character's arc was going, or whatever.
And they have a new name eventually.
Or they have a new name, or they have a completely different name altogether, or whatever the case might be. And so, because initially, like I said, I think with this, I had 30,000 some words written, and I was like, whoa, like this is just like, and I would be finding errors all over the place, right? In that first part. And so, but some people will not move on from that. Like they'll write a sentence or a paragraph, we'll say, and they will not move off that paragraph until it is perfect.
Right.
And it is done. Like, and then they'll move on to the next sentence and or paragraph.
And
keep
neither is
going.
right or wrong, as you've pointed out.
And neither is right or
Yeah.
wrong. And they're just very different elements of writing. I feel like I remember reading Stephen King's On Writing book, and it's a great book, specifically if you're starting out as a writer. And he talks about how you should write 2,000 words a day. That's a lot. That's a lot of words a day. I mean, if we had to do that, then my book would be written in 40 days or less.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And so,
And then 2 years revising.
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But Stephen King also at this juncture, and certainly for the last let's just say 50 years or so, has had the luxury of having editors and having those aspects. The editing process is something else entirely. And we talked about Killing Your Darlings earlier, where it's just like you have to cut. I had to there's an entire character that had to be cut from the book altogether, and certain elements of characters that had to be there. Then that changes the whole dynamic of those characters and of their arc and where the storyline goes. And so, not a surprise, I guess, that I focused a lot on the dialogue and had to go back and add a lot of narrative to really fill in what the place was, how that person is feeling in those aspects. Yeah.
I want to reference, I have a page marked here. There's two things I want to talk about more in the book. One is, of course, your informed way of talking about politics, because you work in politics and you see that part of yourself in the book. The second, I don't know if you intended for this or not, but as a woman reading this book, I felt like you were looking at it through a feminist lens. You treated your female characters with a lot of care and understanding. This is a line that probably maybe nobody else would even pick up on, but it made me emotional reading it. It's very simple. You're talking about Jen, and you're reflecting on her life as a woman in the 80s and what her work might look like. And it reads, "She became trapped in something she wanted." And that just hit me so hard, of what she must have felt like, kind of having her dreams come true or thinking that's what she wanted, and being in that moment and reflecting on that and being like, oh shit, like, is this really what I thought it was going to be? And again, I don't expect you to have maybe a lot of thought on that short single sentence, but it just is something I wanted to point out to you as a reader. You never really know what's going to resonate with someone. And I just thought your way of dealing with the female characters was done with a lot of respect, and that aligns with who you are. And this line in particular was just like, wow, that's so poignant.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, well, that's great. I mean, there are some very strong, and in fact, really, obviously, they're all important in the book. The female characters in the book and the roles that they play. I've been really fortunate in my life. I think I've had a lot of very, very good, very strong women in my life. My wife, my mom, my sister, my aunts, and friends too. A lot of good friends. And so I didn't necessarily think about it as much as I did want I think I wanted balance in so much of like,
because there are a lot of rough dudes in here too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Right. And I wanted the women to be like, to also not be, I wanted them to be just as tough or just as impactful as some of the rough guys that are swearing constantly or something like that might come up, right? That their contribution to the book was like I wanted it to be meaningful, I think. I mean, there's that whole sort of pulp fiction sort of section of the book, where it kind of deviates a little bit and so forth. And there's some particular storylines that evolve from that. And that was important to me because there was a story there to tell about Jen that wasn't going to make it into Jackie being the protagonist of the novel, but I wanted her to have a really significant role.
Yeah. Yeah, you did it well. It's just, we don't have to have a huge thing about it. It's just something I felt I wanted to tell you that I noticed. And of course, yes, you work in politics, so.
Well, and I think I didn't want to delve too much into politics in the book, but I felt like, politics do really, and I think about it a lot in Atlantic Canada, how it really makes its way and to not necessarily every conversation, but it does make its way into a lot of conversations. If you're at Tim Hortons or whatever you're doing, you're just talking about what's going on. I don't know, Atlantic Canadians, I find politics really mean a lot. I find here, I mean, our ability and the amount of people that vote, our turnouts are statistically pretty high in Atlantic Canada. So I think that Atlantic Canadians, kind of not cut off, but like we've got Quebec and then we've got the rest of this giant country. That's awesome. But like it means a lot. And so politics tends to weave its way into conversations, and which is sort of how I hope to present it in the book, that it was just, it's on the radio and now they're talking about it, or it's in the newspaper and now it's kind of come up very generically, because that's how it often happens, right? Where it's not like a couple of people are sitting outside the Irving and they're going to sit down and start talking politics specifically.
Right.
But
goddamn snow plows. Right? When are they going to be here?
Right.
Mike and I had a joke so for those listening, Shawn and I worked together, I don't know, 6 years ago, 10? I don't know, 10 years?
6, yeah, something like that.
A while ago.
Yeah.
And Stephen McNeil was in the leadership. He was the premier at the time, and we had this ongoing joke that if you stubbed your toe in the morning, Stephen McNeil, because it's kind of this joke that you blame whoever is in the leadership role on, and so this was a joke and now it's Tim Houston, of course. If it snows outside, Tim Houston, you blame the politician for absolutely everything.
Yeah, it's raining today, and he didn't want it to rain, or there's not enough rain, so we're blaming somebody in government for it, and that happens. I think that and you know what? It's in a lot of ways sometimes pretty fair. In terms of people who are like, well, there is so much that we are, however we want to present it, but where government is involved in your life, where sometimes you really want government to be involved. Whether that's healthcare, education. In terms of like you want your kids to go to a good school, you want to go to a hospital, you want to be looked after. But there are a lot of instances, I think, where people are finger pointing, and it's not factual at all or has any relevance to anything. It's just, you're just angry.
Yeah.
And I think we see so much of that online today, where and online, and then it kind of goes into real life, unfortunately, but where people are finger pointing, and it may not be good, whether or not you're conservative, NDP, liberal, Green Party, whatever the case might be, that there's a lot of finger pointing going on. And so in the book, I didn't want it to be a focal point of the book, but there is some political discussion occasionally, because it does happen really organically. And I think that that's very genuine too, I would say, for the most part, that whether it's municipal, provincial, or federal, that no, they're not fixing my potholes, or I just hit a pothole and now my tires are blown or something, right? And that happens a lot. And so people want to have those conversations that are just very organic. So it comes up sporadically in the book, but that was also helpful to place the time,
right,
and the settings, and talking about because it's 1982. I didn't really mean to pick that year, but I did, and a lot of some fairly important events in Canada and in New Brunswick, where there was a provincial election that year. That was the year Pierre Trudeau signed the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Sorry, it was 1982. Sorry, it was 1980. So a lot of those things were fairly just kind of sort of happened. Also, it was like 649 started that year, so it's an important year. You know,
That is a big year.
And we were born.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know how that didn't make the book, but you
sorry.
can't get
Yeah.
everything right. It's your first crack.
Yeah.
Do you feel like writing and creativity offers balance to an otherwise fairly stressful or serious career?
Yeah, it's helpful.
Yeah.
You mentioned reading on a daily basis. Certainly in the morning, kind of sets you, maybe sets the tone for the day, for yourself or whatever it might be. Some people have coffee or, do the crossword or whatever. And I don't necessarily write every morning by any stretch, but it does help bring a level of serenity is too strong of a word, but it does kind of help to get, I think, the creativeness, the creative juices, and getting the ideas out. I don't know. There's a number of short stories that are just like sitting there, or there's a number of things that are just started novels that are sort of sitting there waiting to be continued. But it's helpful, that's for sure. I think whether it's legitimately therapeutic for an author or if they're just really wanting to tell a great story that they have a mind for, I think can be really important. I think you had another author on here a few months back. And
Levesque.
Yeah.
Levesque, yeah.
And the only reason I initially knew her name was same publisher.
Right.
And great book. And she has some really great insights on the is it the life of public servants?
Secret
Life
yeah.
of public servants.
Yeah.
And really, I think, and I listened to your guys' podcast with Anne, and some really interesting like insights about like how life is in the public service or something like that, which is, it's kind of its own world in and of its own self, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, this has been amazing. You have covered all the topics.
And then some.
Yeah.
You're a great speaker, Shawn.
Oh,
You're
good.
very easy to sit down with. This
Good.
was a lot of fun.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
I didn't even swear. I don't think so.
you said, holy cow.
Yeah, I know. I had to stop myself.
Yeah. You're allowed to swear.
I
If you
think
wanna-
I swore.
If you want to get a curse word in, you can.
Do you want to let it out now?
Yeah.
Will
Well,
you
now I'm
feel
like,
better?
what's going to be the right one?
Yeah.
Like, which one's it going to be? And you don't want to be too strong.
Yeah.
So, well, maybe we'll let it go. Maybe the first time in about a stretch of 90 minutes that I haven't sworn.
Yeah, you did good.
In a
Set a
couple
record here.
couple of decades.
An
probably,
East Coaster chatting for that long without busting out a swear is world shattering.
That's a win.
Pretty fucking spectacular.
Oh, we made it. We made it 63 minutes. So.
You done good.
Yeah.
Is there anything we missed today? Where can folks buy the book? Where can they find you?
They can certainly find me on I probably have a dozen or so hard copies of this left just at home. But they can go through galleonbooks.ca to find the books through the publisher. It's you can buy it at Chapters. There are a few local ones here and in Moncton and St. John, I think, that probably have some hard copies, but you can order it online.
Is it on Amazon too?
It is, and I'm going to be honest with you, for some reason it's $10 more on Amazon than it is at Chapters. I think it retails at $22.99, and on Amazon for some reason it's about $32.99 or so.
I think that fluctuates because we have our book on Amazon too,
Yeah.
and I noticed it's I don't know that it goes that much, but it's not always consistent. I'm sure there's something with the market happening there that I don't
know why.
understand, but
Yeah, it's really unfortunate
well,
because
pick it up at your local shop or
support local.
That's right, 100%.
Very good.
Yep.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah.
Fantastic read. A very humble bio at the end as well that acknowledges this is your first book and maybe it shows or something like that. I loved that too. But well done, and thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers, folks. Thanks for tuning in.
Make It with Mike and Kristen is recorded and produced by Michael S. Ryan at Hot Jupiter Sounds.
Intro and outro music by me as well.
Cover art by Emily Rankin at Take Note Graphic Design and photography by Candace Moore.
If you cool cats want to help us out, the best way to spread the word is by telling a friend about us. Tell your mom, tell all your buds. Word of mouth is still the best way to reach people. It's free for you and helps us immensely. And if you're into it, you can like and subscribe and all that stuff too.
Another way to support us is through our Patreon. We have a number of super fun tiers and perks like bonus content, handwritten postcards, creative coaching, and so much more. Find us at patreon.com/Mike and Kristen.
For the makers, the dreamers, and the figuring it outers, have fun trying to make it out there, friends.